And when you can bring your authentic self,
clear in what you want, do everything that moves you in that direction.
Building a business and a life worth owning and having.
It's just about being you.
Hey everybody, Craig Lerch here again. Empowering experiences, disrupting real estate, and having fun.
We are excited today. I got my man Shaun Rawls coming from Hot Lanta, from the Buckhead Diner and all that stuff. So, hey, I love Atlanta, but you keep going in circles down there. He's also was the #1 firm in Atlanta ever in real estate. He was with Keller Williams, was in business for 25 years. So we're going to have a chance to talk about real estate. We're going to have a chance to talk about humility. We're going to have a chance to talk about awesomeness and changing your life. And we're going to have a chance to talk about his great family and his awesome book, Effortless. I love this book. I love giving this book out. So what you got to do is stay tuned to the end. We're going to have a little bit of a fun thing, but giving a gift away. But Shaun, hey, welcome, man. It's so great to see you.
Dude, I'm excited to be here. This is it's fun to break bread with you and just kind of share a screen. This is fun. You are full of energy and an awesome producer whose reputation kind of precedes itself. So it's an honor for me to be on the phone with you, buddy.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'll tell you the story. I'll tell you a quick story of how I learned about the book. A mutual friend of ours, Christine Cura, who you would work with and who your wife Jerry knows and all that stuff, and your in-laws know, called me one day from the car. Oh my God, you, Craig, I got to talk to you. And I listened to her on the voicemail. I called her back. I said, what's wrong? She goes, oh my God, I just finished this awesome book. It's called Effortless, written by, Shaun Rawls, a friend of ours. I'm like, you're really that excited? She goes, you got to listen to this. It's everything we've ever talked about. You won't sleep. So I went on the Audible. I got the book. And guess what? I couldn't sleep. I went crazy. I kept listening. I literally listened to it one time straight through. It was great hearing your voice. And then I was like, okay, I got to do this again. Now I'm taking notes. But unbelievable. Thank you.
I am so glad. I hope my children are that excited about it one day. We'll see.
One thing is that, when you get somebody that changes your life or gives you an aha and wakes that moment up and says, wow, it is it. You all wait for those things because I know we all want to use that F word that we're not supposed to be. Joseph Brayson taught us the word one time. He goes, in his family, there's an F word. I try to use it around my house too. It's called flexibility. But no, here we go. But so how did you write the, tell us a little bit of the story. How did this thing come about? Because it's not easy.
It's not easy. And it's not a particularly short story, but it's I'd stepped out of operations for running our real estate group here. Remained intact as an owner and all that stuff, but just as the chapter suggests, I was floating, and I just floated for a while just to kind of see what the universe brought my way. And I literally woke up in the middle of the night, and I'd been thinking about change and how people create change in their world. And what happens is I've seen too many people go and create change by just saying F it, right? They give in or they give up something. And they just kind of go with the flow. Most people's change in their life doesn't come from their architectural plans. It comes from somebody else's. And it's fine for a time, but once that becomes a habit and you do it day in and day out, the change that you're having in your life really isn't the change you want. And so we end up in unfulfilling relationships, unfulfilling careers, unfulfilling life circumstances. And I thought, what if F it wasn't a bad word? What if we made the phrase F it something that was actually positive and actually did something great for you? And we scrapped the old version of F it and traded it in for some new F words that really meant something that could really change your life. And so I got up and I think it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just started I must have written down 30 F words. And I woke up so excited, and I called a friend of mine whose name is on the book as well. She's one of the top ghostwriters for celebrities in the country. And I called her and I said, I couldn't sleep last night thinking about this idea. What do you think? And she was like, I love it. She said, can you write some stuff around and sketch it out a little bit more, and let's talk about it. So I did, and now you've got what ended up being a book that came out of Wake Up in the Middle of the Night years ago.
Laura, right?
Laura Morton. She's unbelievable. She's one of the coolest, smartest, most talented people I've ever met in my life.
There you go. So tell me about some of the challenges that you were like, okay, tell us about the transition. You were in your business. You were working in your business and working
Sure.
on your business. You were
Sure.
doing all this coaching. You were running, 2,000 some agents in Keller Williams?
Yep. We had a
and then you were in a burnout and you decided to get rid of everything. You literally said, all toxics going this way, including your partner and your wife.
Yeah, all of that. It was, I just kind of, I wrote in the book that I was ready for some major life changes. The problem was I really didn't know it. And I just found myself just trying to figure out how to create the right life I want. And I started thinking about am I okay with where I'm at? Is where I'm at and where I'm heading, where I really want to be and where I want to end up. And there were a couple of critical components that weren't right in my life, basically due to neglect and stupidity or just lack of knowledge. And it just kind of ended up with an obvious, massive amount of change for me. And I chose probably it was the most difficult decision I've ever made in my life, which is to just scrap some things that have been a real huge part of who I was and what my identity was and what my family was and what it looked like. And I chased love over all things at the end of the day. And that was against a lot of people's advice and suggestions. But when I look back on it, it was truly a defining moment for me. And I have a great life. I have a life that I chose, and I walk through one step at a time. And and I tell people, if I could go back and do some things differently, I would. But if I had to do things the way I did them to get all that I have now, I would make the same mistakes again. But it's hard because when you make major life changes, there's a lot of things that are great for you, but they're not great for some people you care a lot about. And so some people support you, some people don't. Some people are just hurt, and that's part of life too. And it's when you're making big life decisions, it's part of the reasons this book I think is so important to me is because if you're not crystal clear on what it is you're doing and why, your destiny is probably going to be short-circuited because of compassion or confusion about where you are when it starts hitting the opposition of people who don't understand or want what they want selfishly, they don't always want what you want or what's best for you. They want what's best for them selfishly. So you have to be really, really, really clear about what you want in life in order to actually stay on track to get there.
That's great. I want to hit on a couple of the chapters that are in here, but it wasn't easy what you did. You walked out of a relationship and you had two of your own, right? 2 kids of your own.
Yeah.
You fell in love with Jerry, who let me tell you something, is an absolute doll. I know her in-laws. I know your in-laws, the Basses. They're absolutely awesome. So you definitely got a blessed situation there, which is awesome.
I do.
And then, okay, so your 2 kids' names were Noble and Steele?
Noble and Steele.
They were not easy names.
They were not easy names. I mean, Noble's name came out of we were watching a movie one night, and somebody's last name on the credits of the movie was Noble, and I thought, well, that'd be a cool name. And we ended up with Noble, and then Steele was, once you have a Noble, it's kind of hard to come up with a kid named Fred. So we were really struggling with it, and we settled on Steele at the last minute. So Noble and Steele came out of that, and they're awesome kids. I'm super proud of them.
There you go. And then you more or less became family then with Jerry's kids, which is three. Yeah, there's Jacob, Andrew, and as you call her, the caboose, Sarah, who is the one that controls everything, probably.
The daughter I never had. She's unbelievable. She's strong and smart and pretty and not unlike her mother or anybody else in her family. She comes by it honestly, but she's amazing.
There you go. And you guys have been blessed because Jerry used to do didn't she used to do a lot of singing, or who did that your son Jacob?
Yeah. Jerry grew up in the theater world, and I think she was like Jacob actually ended up. She really missed her 5th grade school year because she was on tour with Annie. And then she worked a lot in like the Burt Reynolds Theater and down there. And she did she worked around just professional theater people like forever. And So when Jacob had a penchant and an opportunity to do School of Rock on tour a few years ago, it was really fun, and it was fun for her and fun for him, and it's kind of a bond they share, and so that was cool. So yeah, they're all individuals. They are all individuals, and they all offer the world lots of cool things. So it's fun to watch those things develop.
Well, I want to touch on something you had put in the book there, the story of, you had the 5 kids, you had 4 that were still at home, Jacob traveling, and he was too young to travel by himself.
Sure.
So you and Jerry were like ships in the night, along with your in-laws, passing, flying, jumping, who's jumping, who's going, but you never missed the function of the other 4 kids. I mean,
yeah, it doesn't.
How did you keep your marriage together? How did you keep the kids happy? How did you keep yourself safe?
It takes a village. It was really hard. He was School of Rock was 35 cities, 300 and something shows, in less than a year. So when you've got kids like that in a production like that, you've got to make sure that when your plane lands, the other person, if you're tagging in for another adult, the other person can't leave until you're there. So it's not as easy as I'll fly in that day, you fly out that day. It's more like, what time is your flight? When do you come in? How soon do I have to leave? And who can I put Jacob with for a couple hours till we get to the airport? I mean, it was just, Gail and Richard were amazing. They were just like, anytime you need us anywhere, we will drop anything we're doing and be wherever you need us to go. Just tell us. And that was, they were probably our biggest relief valve of pressure points. But, Jacob's dad's an awesome guy. He's super successful. He's got a financial planning business, and he's got a lot of autonomy with that and some flexibility when he needs it. And he was in a young marriage too. So we were it really, everybody pitched in and made it work for Jacob, despite the difficulties it caused some of the adults. But it was a cool thing to be a part of.
Well, cool. So I want to touch on 4 of the chapters that really resonated with me. They all resonated, but let's start with the forgiveness chapter.
Let's talk. Yeah, forgiveness is one everybody kind of talks about as just really hitting them differently, or really, it's one of the first things that just kind of hits at the heart of some of the scar tissue we all walk around with, and forgiveness is a long road, and our ego gets involved, and it's a hard one to absorb. A lot of people get stuck on this chapter and have to go back and read it again before they go forward. And I get it, because some people are really hard on others, some people are really hard on themselves, and some people are really hard on others and themselves. And we carry around more resentment than we should, and we have a hard time forgiving ourselves for mistakes that we've made, to the point that we keep ourselves from moving forward. And I think life is meant to live, recklessly at times. And I think the mistakes we make are mistakes that we're supposed to make, oddly enough, because if you look at life in the rearview mirror and you look at what you've done, and you zoom out and don't do it where it consumes the whole screen, but you zoom out where you can see that mistake in relation to lots of other things in your life, I think it creates a lot of clarity. There's a lot of logic that comes in when you can look back and zoom out. And when you can apply logic as a salve to an emotional wound and get some sense of reasoning around it that allows you to move forward, it's huge. And I think, just talking about forgiveness the way I did in this book, combined with some of the exercises and strategies or just thought processes, I think it really can help somebody who's just carrying around that unnecessary, for me, it's like we're all walking around with these bags, and some people are just dragging these giant pieces of luggage around wherever they go, even if they're jogging and running and trying to move fast. They're carrying all this unnecessary weight of regret or remorse or just self-inflicted guilt for themselves or for other people. And I hope that this book, if it does anything, I hope it lightens the load for people and teaches them how to do that, so that they can pack that bag, leave it in the closet, and go out and attack the day and conquer the world just the way they're supposed to.
They say that you can't fix your outside until you fix your inside.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, is a lot of us have the hard time of seeing in the mirror. I mean, I'll be honest, I've been down there. My humility and being the braver as I've gotten older and doing this stuff is, admit your faults, admit what you've done wrong, say you're sorry. If you've messed up years ago, it's never too late to reach out to that person, say, all right, I messed up, I effed up, we met, whatever it is. You can't take it with you.
If you think about the people that you've met over your life who've been impactful, from being young to being older, I can think about people that have really stood out for me that I just thought were awesome. And when I think about those people, they are usually the most genuine, the most honest, vulnerable, and self-aware, and even self-deprecating in a funny way of their faults. And they don't apologize for them. They don't try to hide them. They just say, look, I'm really bad at this. I'm horrible at this. Whatever it is, in whatever context, I think those people have a sense of clarity and a sense of self that people need to learn from, and realize that we're not supposed to be. And the people that are the most annoying that we've ever known in our life are usually the people that think they thought knew it all, or that they didn't want to admit their faults and they wanted to appear more perfect than they ever could possibly be. And I think they're annoying. And I think that it's hard to create connectivity with people who strive to be perfect and present perfect, even if their world's falling apart and they don't want anybody else to see it. And we've all been on both sides of that fence. But when you really look at the people who are most impactful, I guarantee you they were vulnerable. They were really clear about who they are and who they're not. And they don't mind talking about it and living it, because they're not trying to be anything other than what they are. And you have to respect that.
Oh, absolutely. And I appreciate it, because we're all living in our lives are all a real reality show, but we're all so busy looking at the reality shows of what other people are doing and what's going on and and I'm not even going to go into those shows, that I've said to my daughter, I said, do you know that this doesn't, my daughter Casey, I'm like, they'll watch The Bachelor or Bachelorette. Do you know that this doesn't happen? These are multi-million-dollar shows, and when they end, these guys don't have that money, or they don't have it, and they're going to go back to a real world. What happens then? So that is a very, very huge point, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Sure, man.
Hey. All right, next one. That kind of helps after the forgiving is how to figure your problems out, which is forking.
Forking. One of my favorite chapters.
I know.
One of my favorite chapters. And it was actually by, it just kind of evolved for me in writing this book, because there was so much thought I was trying to explain to people, that things I felt like I knew, but I didn't know how to explain. And when I wrote down the exercise that's printed in that book, that's the actual note I wrote on a piece of paper, where it goes from point to point to point to point. And I thought, this is really powerful, because exactly, that's it. That's my forking chart. So I decided, if I could go back to the first adult decision I made, which for me was, where am I going to go to college? First autonomous decision that I made as a young adult. Then what happened? So I wrote down where I could have gone and where I went. And then I said, okay, so then I went to school there. And then I had another point, another point, another point, another point. Forking is just about changes of direction that have occurred in your life. And sometimes we orchestrate or architect those changes of direction. And other times those are chosen for us. Sometimes we lose our job. Sometimes we get divorced. Sometimes somebody dies. There's all kinds of things that we think are unfortunate because they're typically defined as bad. But when you zoom out and you look at that path, well, if I hadn't have lost my job, I would have never got into real estate. And if I hadn't got into real estate, I would have never become this as a human being and been able to do this and do that. And you take all these inflectional points of direction in your life and you map them out to where you are today. Go back 20, 30, 40 years. And you look, well, then that happened and then that happened. And then I wanted to do this and I did that. And then so-and-so died or I got a divorce and I ended up having to do this. And then I ended up here and then ended up there. And you realize I was so upset about that thing that happened 20 years ago. I thought it ruined my life. And all it did when I look at this forking exercise is it paved the way for me to be in a place and a space with people that I never would have been in had that not have occurred. And so you look back on your life and you can have appreciation for the things that you might have been carrying around for years thinking that were horrible. And when you look at it like this and you go, oh my God, it wasn't horrible at all. It was a blessing for me. And I've been too stupid to realize it. You know, now it may also show you that you're a bad decision maker. You know, you may look at it and go, I've made a lot of shitty choices in my life, and what can I learn from it, right? So you can say, and if I sync all that together and I realize all those decisions were made out of fear, or all those decisions were made out of insecurity when I really zoom out and look at it, well, that's a lot to understand about yourself going forward and going, okay, if you got that from the exercise, what can you possibly do now if you don't do that anymore? So for me, I think forking is I think it's a massive perspective builder for you. And it's like a light bulb. I mean, you do this exercise and you look at it and you look for the clues that it gives you. They're there, man. They are there. And you can either pay attention and do something about it and be changed forever in an instant, or kick it under the carpet like you've done everything else. Because, you know, you and I both know that a lot, we create more patterns in our life than we create solutions. We figure out we started when we were kids, how to push food around on our plate to make it look like we ate our vegetables, right? Well, we figured out that worked for mom and dad, so we did it somewhere else. We did it at school.
I thought I was the only one that did that.
No. So, and what happens is when we create these patterns of dealing with things that aren't ideal, we're not really solving them for our benefit. We're just pushing food around the plate. And if we just eat it or we do it in a way, there's no telling what we could possibly do with our life. And you know, the early part of the book, I talk about the problem with adaptability, because I heard a long time ago that human beings are the most adaptable species on the planet. And that's true. But the problem with adaptability is we talk about adaptability like I'm adaptable, I can adapt to anything. That's true. The problem is we typically adapt to things that are less than ideal for us instead of trying to adapt to things that are more than ideal for us. So we adapt back into comfort zones and comfort food and comfort people, even when they're not healthy for us, instead of stretching ourselves and going into the uncomfortable and adapting to something that's more uncomfortable for us, which is at our disposal too. We just don't do it. And we act like adaptability is a great thing, and it's not. And so that's how we end up in these lives that caused me to write this book that says, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Are you really okay with that? And are you really going to be okay with that for the next 10 or 20 or 30 years? Would you tell your children that it's okay to think the way that you're thinking? Because most people I know, if they were honest, wouldn't.
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I was at this point in the forking thing, I started writing things down, and I'll be honest. When I was graduating college, I had this great idea. I had just started dating my wife Linda, and God bless her. I reference her as Mrs. Lerch all the time because she's still in charge. But 30 years later, and there were some forks in the road that I was facing. I had a chance to go teach skiing in Aspen and be a bartender out there. And I went to my dad, and my dad was like, "That's a great idea. How are you going to get there? You have no money." Well, that path got passed, and I was in real estate. I didn't know what it was. I went for economics in college, and I knew nothing else. And here we are, 30 years later. I would not be sitting here probably talking with you and all the friends that I've had through the years, and the thousands and thousands of families that we've helped, in their dream of getting a home and all that stuff. So it was a tough point going through those forks, going through those things, conversations, with people through the years. So it does gut wrench you, but what it does, it makes you better.
It does.
Change is not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. If winning the Super Bowl was doing everybody would do it. If everybody was supposed to be fit, everybody would fit. If we were all supposed to be wealthy, it's not easy to raise the bar because everybody else doesn't it. We've had this conversation with other guests that I've had, the crab theory. As you're going up, people want to pull you down. They want to keep you in the basket because unfortunately it makes them have to grow also, or you're going to leave them behind.
Well, it's like, I think I wrote that in the book, right? We've always heard misery loves company, but guess what else loves company? Mediocrity.
Yeah,
right.
It makes them comfortable. It's the comfort. It's the comfort food you talked about.
That's right.
So as we're talking about that, we're talking about the crabs. You know, there was another part of the book called the foxhole. I call it the rabbit hole, you know, and my kids say to me all the time, oh, here we go. Here's the rabbit hole story again. But, you know, Alice in Wonderland kept falling and falling, but watching her life go by and seeing all these things. And so let's touch on the foxhole chapter.
Sure. Let's touch on it. So, you know, obviously foxhole there's a military history there, right? So, you know, when people get in the military, they have to, one of the first things they have to learn how to do is dig and maintain their own foxhole. And foxholes were created to provide shelter and defense, as well as providing a strategic opportunity to play offense as well. So for me, foxhole is a metaphor for, you know, they're not luxury beachfront condos, right? They're minimalist. They're minimalist shelter sources. And for me, foxhole was about talking to the reader that's reading it, going, okay, so I do know what I want to do. I do know some of the things I have to do. I do understand the actions I need to take. But man, why do I feel like it's going to be lonely? Why am I scared of what I want to do, and what is that going to look like? And from my experience, foxhole came out as a word of advice for a reader that says, look, when you go through a personal crisis or you go through a personal change of direction that you're choosing, you're going to be very surprised by the people who show up for you that you didn't expect. But you're going to be even more surprised by the people who don't that you thought would. And don't think that everybody is going to be in your foxhole. You don't want them. It would get too crowded and too smelly and too uncomfortable. You don't want everybody. But you need to be crystal clear on the people that are truly your foxhole buddies, the people that would take a bullet for you and the people that you would take a bullet for. And you need to be really comfortable knowing that in the change of direction you're about to go forth in your life, you need to know that if that foxhole buddy, if those foxhole buddies are the only people that are in there with you, you've got to be okay with that. And you might have to realize that you might have to sit in that foxhole with those buddies just to get out of the line of fire and criticism and judgment that's going to be coming your way from people who are not worthy of being in your foxhole. So if you're going to go out on it, dig your foxhole and look around you and make sure you've got a handful of people that you would call foxhole buddies, and be okay if that's the only people that end up in there. My guess is you'll be surprised by some people that show up that you weren't even counting on. But most importantly, you're not going to be floored or debilitated or devastated by the people who aren't in your foxhole that you thought would be. This is not a list of people you hope will be there. This is a group of people that you know that you would bet the ranch on are going to be there, whether you're a knucklehead or a genius. And they're going to be there to love you no matter what.
I love that, the knucklehead, because there are times in life we are knuckleheads. I mean, I've gone down my rabbit hole and I've been a knucklehead. My wife says, she's used other words for me, but
yeah,
you know, it's, you know, when we first became parents, we didn't know how to be parents. You know, I've admitted to my kids, I say, look, I say to my daughter, this is the first time I'm raising a daughter. I don't know what a 19-year-old does. I didn't do it before. Well, you learned on Noble, then you moved it to Steele, and then you got to Jacob and Andrew. By the time you got to Sarah, you know, you don't know those things. So exactly, we're knuckleheads at times, but when you admit it, you're a lot better. You feel better about it. And,
you know, people used to come to my office at Keller Williams, and they would say, I hate this. I don't know why we're doing this. What is the company doing? They've developed this thing. It doesn't work. And what do you think about it? And I was like, you know what I think about it? We don't know what we're doing. I was like, we don't know what we're doing. And they go, what do you mean? I go, we've never been at 50,000 agents before. We're trying to figure it out. We've never been at 75,000. We've never been at 100. We don't know what we're doing. No, there's nobody we can really talk to that's been here either. So And EXP is going through the same thing, right? It's like
we're at 73,000. Yes,
you guys are right there at 70-something thousand, and you want to get to 100 and $500,000, 500,000 people out here, and all that stuff. And guess what? Nobody knows how to do it, right? They're going to come up with great ideas that are going to get them there. But I guarantee you, some of them are going to suck. Some of them are going to be they're going to be well intended, but poorly executed. Some are going to have a great idea, but the wrong person doing it. Some are going to have a great idea, but the wrong company's product. And you're going to fail forward. But it doesn't matter whether you're the head of EXP or the head of Keller Williams or the head of Remax or the head of any other company in the country, real estate or not. You're not going to improve if you're not willing to fail. If you want to read a great book, the book that came out last year about Jeff Bezos.
Was it Dying with Zero?
No. It's Jeff Bezos' book, and it's his. The first half of the book is all of his. I've got it right up the stairs. The first half of the book is all of the letters he wrote to his owners from like the mid 90s. He writes a letter to the owners every year, and it's fascinating to read that because he starts out, this is back when Amazon was probably $8 a share, right? And he was like, look, here's what I'm going to tell you as an owner. We're going to throw a lot of stuff at the wall. And there's going to be a lot of it that isn't going to work out and isn't going to be profitable and will be out and right failures. But the ones that do will make all of that worth it. And every letter he has that tone that just says, if you're looking for a company that's going to go safe and calculated, where we only go and tread waters, where we know we're going to make money, you do not need to be an investor in this company. And he pretty much says that. And I'm like, if I'd have known that, if I'd have read one of these letters 20 years ago, I would be a gazillionaire because I would have put so much of my money with Amazon, because that's the philosophy of a leader that is clear, that knows where he's going, that knows he's going to make a ton of mistakes and apologize for them up front. In fact, he doesn't apologize for them at all, but just prepares you for it. And it's brilliant. So just know that you're not supposed to know what you're doing. If you know everything about what you're doing, you're playing it way too safe.
Yeah, that's exactly what you did. I mean, you were in the real estate business. Now you're in the coaching, and you're in the booking, you're in all that stuff. And I was in my own brokerage business. I'm now back. I'm like into a new entity, and I'm growing with a national company now. But you know what? The interesting part is it's about failure, and failure is okay. It's like when you were walking as a kid, your parents wouldn't keep picking you up. You'd fall. They try to let you push yourself up, and you get going, and and that's one of the big things. You got to keep going. You got to keep going. No matter how low you are, there's always a top. There's always somewhere to go. And that's where we come into another chapter that I really love. We all work for goals. Goals are goals. Goals come and go. Commitments are things that are, I'm committed to get it done. I got to save my parent. I got to do whatever it is. You're going to do everything you can. You got to hold on to somebody long enough that somebody's going to save them. You got to do that. That's a commitment, and that's where you got to go. But we all say, well, I want to have money. I want to have this. I want to have that. What really is what we want? And it's one of your chapters. You know the one I'm talking about. What is it that we all really want? What is that?
It's freedom. It's freedom. And freedom is how, for me, it's freedom as I define it in the book, right? It's freedom. The definition of freedom that I was exposed to 20 something years ago, which is I adopted as my own immediately, was freedom means a complete lack of anxiety. A complete lack of anxiety, freedom. And it's just saying it feels good, right? I mean, if you can think about the things that bother you, the stresses you have, the worries you have, the financial concerns, whatever it is, if you can think, if I was a magic genie and I just said, Craig, they're gone. It's the biggest weight loss program in the history of man, right? And if you can think about, if I could create a life of freedom, a life that is free of anxiety for me, all the anxiety I've known and carried around and lived with my life or my adult life or this, in this career or in this marriage. If you're telling me that there's a way for me to live a life that's absent of those things, I want to know more. And so while that's the end chapter in the book, it could have, I struggled with whether they're put it in the front of the book, because it really, but it's the end game. If you understand all the things that are in this book, and then you get to that chapter, you go, I get, this is all the roads.
You put it in the right spot.
All roads lead to freedom. All these strategies lead to freedom. All the bubble chart and the energy and the thought processes and the naming of the voice in your head and the stop doing list. All those things lead to freedom. And if I can, if my book helps somebody, anybody, everybody who reads it, to create less anxiety in their life because of these strategies and thought processes, man, it's so worth the effort and all the energy that went into writing this.
I think you put it at the absolute perfect spot.
Great.
Because I think we all don't know what we really want, but it is the freedom. It's the freedom anxiety. It's not the material things. It's the freedom to be able to do the things. And it was really heart-filling at the end of that. And as you go through the book, it really wrenched me, because I was, I was in the book. I was reading it. I was hearing words that I hear and talk to myself and I've heard. But and the way you wrote it so much with just layman's terms and in your face, not beating you up, just as a matter of fact. And it's not telling a story. It's calling all the uncomfortable conversations that nobody wants to have with themselves, that you kind of had I'll call it what do you call it? A sofa talk or a fireplace talk.
That's right.
Your identity of who you really wanted to be was over there, and then who you were here, and you were talking and sharing it. It was awesome, coming up with this. There was one thing in there that I really, and I'm working on now, and I am working on it, and you and I have talked about it. And it's not easy. What is that list? And it's in here.
The stop doing list. The stop doing list.
And that helps you get to the final chapter.
It really does. It's there's the idea of we learned how to make to-do lists when we were a kid, right? Our parents had the things that needed to get accomplished over the weekend, the grocery list, whatever it is. It just sat out on the counter or stuck on the fridge that had just a to-do list. And many people go through their work life they wake up, they create a to-do list, or they make their to-do list before they go to bed. Here's I used to play tennis and coach tennis professionally. And I had a coach tell me once that you're not playing with enough margin for error. You're trying to hit the line and hit winners on the line. And when you miss the line, your ball's out. So I'm going to tell you, give yourself more room for error. And instead of hitting a winner within 3 inches, hit a winner within 12 to 18 inches. And just open up the target a little bit, so that when you miss the exact target, you're still in and you still hit a winner. And I think that I think we're all operating with such a slim margin for error in our lives that I say that we're all carrying around a 5-pound bag and we're trying to put 10 pounds of poop in it, right? And so we've all got this 5-pound bag with 10 pounds of poop that we're trying to carry around. And when that all the poop in that bag represents your systems, your habits, the way you do things, the way you talk to people, the way you think, the scheduler you use, the CRM you use, the follow-up program, your consistency, lead generation, lead follow-up, lead conversion, team management, all that's in your bag, right? All of it. So when Shaun Rawls or anybody else sits here and says, I've got something new for you, Craig. I've got something new. I want you to just start doing this tomorrow. Craig's thinking, I got 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag, man. Where am I going to put it? Where am I going to put it? And we don't have the space for something new in most cases. So what I try to get across in this book is, let's create a stop doing list. Before we even start taking on the new stuff, let's create a stop doing list. And let's take 30 days. And I don't mean just write it down right now before you go have a beer with your buddy. I mean, give yourself a 30-day challenge that for 30 days, I'm going to go through my day observing. I want to be on the lookout for the things that I'm doing that I know I should probably stop doing. And I want to just write it down. And at the end of the month, I want to look at it. And I probably can't stop doing all the things I'm going to come up with, but at least I'll have a list to choose from of importance at that time. But even if nothing else, I'm just freaking curious. I'm a little curious about what after a month I would write down. I really need to stop. I need to stop judging this. I need to stop spending time on this. I need to stop running to look at a house without pre-qualifying somebody. I need to stop talking when I should be listening. Everybody's got their thing, but give yourself 30 days, give yourself a dedicated page in something or on your phone that when something comes up, you go, well, that's stupid. Why do I always do that? I need to stop doing that. Put it down there. And then at the end of 30 days, look at the list you've created and go, if you got what on this list could you really get rid of? What poop could you take out of that bag? Hence, giving yourself more space to fill it with something more positive or more productive or more rewarding for you. But don't be fooled into thinking the reason all these new ideas don't stick usually, we don't have room for them. And we haven't created the space for them in our lives. And the thing that people don't talk about, while everybody's got great ideas, what they really don't talk about is the only way they're going to stick is if you get rid of some of the poop in your bag. You can't take this on without getting rid of something. So if you're going to say yes to it, you have to say no to something else. If you're going to say yes to that new idea, you're going to have to let go of that blankie. You're going to have to let go of that bad habit. You're going to have to let go of that thing you've been doing for 20, 30 years just because it's comfortable for you. But you have to commit to stop it. So stop doing list. It sounds so simple, and we could have a 30-second conversation about that. But truthfully, it requires a lot more thought and effort and energy because the power of a stop doing list, I think, is magical. Magical, absolutely magical.
Wow. There's nothing to segue into after that. All I can tell you one thing. I'm going to challenge everybody who's watching this, no matter what business you're in, whatever it is. Shaun's awesome. You gotta get this book. But do your stop doing list, and I would love to see somebody repost back in here 30 days from now the stop doing list. Stop. One of the things you had told me before that you had said, stop going back for seconds. Stop. Just go. Have your 1 minute. Don't keep going back for seconds. Just as an idea of it, it'll change your whole life in there. So I'm gonna put a challenge out before we leave. That's number one. Number two, anybody who is the first person that puts in here Shaun's daughter's name. Okay. We're going to reach out to you, and I'm going to send you a autograph book from Shaun because I love giving these things out. I mean, I buy 20, 40 of them at a time and all that stuff.
I love it.
It changed my life. I'm trying to share with others, and I am so blessed and so happy. One, you're my friend. Two is your great success and your happiness with Jerry and with Noble and Steele and Jacob and Andrew and Sarah. I can't wait for you to come to Philly. We're going to have some fun. But you're a true life changer. You made uncomfortable comfortable, and I don't know what to say. You want to say anything in the end?
You're awesome. Hey, listen, you're awesome. I'm really thankful that you had me on this show, and I hope it strikes a nerve with some other people as well. But I'm so appreciative of your enthusiasm for this project and your support of it. And anything I can ever do for you, Mr. Lerch, consider me on the front row of your fan base. So I owe you, buddy. I appreciate it.
If I go in the foxhole, we'll make sure you're with me.
I'm there. You can count on it.
There you go. Hey, everybody. Thanks for visiting today with us with Delivering Empowering Experiences, Disrupting Real Estate Show. Craig Lerch here. You're all rock stars. It's just a matter of going out and doing it. Remember, live life effortless. And you're going to have a lot less fun. See y'all.
Empowering experiences, disrupting real estate,